What up friends, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in another video. This time I'd like to show you how to draw a beautiful angel statue. What I started doing recently is just opening some pictures, looking for inspirational whatever search term, and just see what comes up and try to go for it and paint it. And I really like this approach because I kind of train myself to see inspiration wherever I look. So that's a good thing. And this is the result of this approach. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Let's get to it. Okay, so I decided this time to do a narrated version because I feel like for people who want to watch longer videos, it's better to have a voice than text instructions. So I'll kind of alternate between the two and we'll see what you prefer better. So now I'm basically going over my guidelines that I do. What I tend to do is use a very light, very hard pencil, 6H, to draw lines that are barely visible and just to get the main shapes of what I want to draw. And later on I go with just a regular pencil to, sorry, to sort of go over the lines so that I actually see them. Because if I only use the hard pencil, I just won't see the lines the moment I put on the first layer of watercolor or the second one. Now, important thing about drawing stuff that are a preparation for watercolor painting is you're mainly drawing shapes. You're not drawing necessarily the actual parts of whatever it is. Like, for example, I didn't draw the nose or the eyes or the mouth. I'm simply drawing the shapes of the shadows, because shadows are what defines reality, shadow and light. And so you're basically drawing the lines of light or shadow, and later on you know what to paint with the watercolors. This video is, I think, 3 times faster than the original one, so I'll just try to give you some key pointers about the process. I won't explain every single thing I do. I do plan to have videos like that as well. I'm starting to think about setting up a Patreon actually to do these kind of things. A Patreon, I'll explain about it in the future. So now I'm mixing some dark paints to create the shadowed areas of the angel on the face and on the body and on the clothes and wings and hair and everything. I'm using a mixture of green, some, I think, yellow ochre, sorry, maybe a bit of viridian green and some blue to cancel it out. I'm really pleased with the color scheme, as you'll see with how it turned out. You'll see that in a few moments. So now you see I'm leaving a small highlight just for the ear, and for the very first layer I make sure to make it wet enough, because if it's not wet enough then the color may dry really fast and you won't get an even initial wash. And I think it's really important to get at least the first wash to be at least a bit even, unless you're trying to get a specific effect. For the most part, it's best if you can get it as even as possible. In terms of the wash itself, the colors that you use can change, as you see now. Now what I'm actually doing is putting a little more yellow ochre into the mixture, and I love varying the colors of the initial wash and to actually use really different colors. You'll see in a few moments that I will mix some blue. There you see a bit of viridian and I think it's Prussian blue, just to create a more green feel to it, because think old statue, and it's kind of yellowish and maybe even green. Now what I like to do is leave a lot of whites, if possible, with the initial wash. So the entire statue is really light toned, so I prefer to leave it just white, let the white of the page do its thing, and just use my paint to do the shadows. Now there will be darker shadows inside the shadows, but for now I prefer, as for the white parts, to leave them entirely white to create that beautiful strong contrast. And you'll see me all throughout this video actually leaving the upper part of the statue relatively bright, and there's a really good reason for me doing that, because I'm gonna put in a really dark background, and the background is gonna make it pop, and you'll see it's just a beautiful effect. Now very light shadows under the clothes of the statue. I'm using a bit more yellow here, and now I'm creating a cool effect of actually flooding the paper with water and then sort of hitting it against the table, making the water flow down. I just like to create these effects in my portraits. gives them this sort of looseness and fun, and you know, not so stuffy and serious. And here I spatter some paint as well. I do that a lot recently. Lately I've been doing that a lot. So now I'm putting in the final shadows on the wing. Now the next layer that's gonna come will be composed of a little bit of darker tone, which I will mix using mainly the green and the blue. So I think it's Prussian blue, as I said, and Viridian, which I love recently. And as you can see, significantly darker than the first layer. I think I could have even made it a little darker still keeping the highlight of the ear here. And you will see how this second layer of shadow really brings out the darker parts already. So you can see all the right side is a little darker. Next to around the eyes, I'm gonna add a really dark shadow. So that's a really good thing. With the second layer, you can make a little more mistakes in terms of how even the wash is. It's still better to get an even wash as much as possible, but you can definitely make a little more mistakes than the first layer. I'm using very sharp edges here, by the way. I didn't get to soften too many edges. There is a good technique for softening edges, which I think I will now do on the face in a few moments. Basically, you put on a wash, then you clean the brush, dry it, and sort of move it around the edge, and it sort of makes it bleed and sort of creates a gradated wash, what you might call a gradated wash. I'm curious to hear your opinion about what you prefer, narrated versions like this one, or with the portrait that I did, which is more of text instructions. I personally love when there's narration, so I guess some of you do as well. So now you see the beautiful, beautiful Viridian green I put here in the background, and you will see in just a few moments how the entire statue pops and it makes it look three-dimensional and so beautiful. It's just amazing. And I'm trying to get it as dark as possible in the closest areas to the edges of the shadow, of the statue, sorry. These are the areas that should be the darkest. Now in the reference images you may be able to see that there are some differences in the background because it's sort of foliage like trees and bushes and light comes through them. And I try to mimic that look by sort of modifying the paints I use, adding a little more green here, a little more yellow ochre there. So it gives it this really cool look. And I can allow myself to do that because the foreground of this painting, which is the statue, is so unified, sort of even, and it's just white, so the background can get a little crazier. If the object at the front was crazier, I wouldn't be able to actually, you know, pull it off with a background that's crazy with a lot of variation as well. So this is something to take into account, the balance of the entire painting. And as I said, now adding the darker like around the eyes, which I just forgot. I actually should have done it earlier. I just forgot to do it. The drawing actually is not that accurate. I did have a few mistakes, but the overall look I think is really good, and I'm pleased with it. So there you can see. And of course I have to sign it, so I'll sign it now. And I think this is it for the painting process. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's wrap it up. This is it for today. I hope you guys liked the painting. Here's the final result. You can see it here. I really like this. What I really like about this one, as I said, is the beautiful background that really contrasts with the face of the statue. So it's a really cool, I think, concept. And also I really like the color scheme I used, so I think I will be deploying a lot more of the Viridian that I used in this one. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to subscribe for more awesome videos, and also follow me on Instagram and Snapchat, where I'm showing tons of stuff like that. And that's it. I'll see you in another video really soon. Until then, take care.